Shavua Tov, Boker Tov, everyone. This is
Part 2 of the first shiur in Stooge Torah.
So we were talking about when we go out in the desire of a beautiful woman, and we would take her as a wife, and why this would be. And so this is an occasion of lust. So it's not like he's not going out to see among the nations some righteous woman here. So the Torah is making a concession for, okay, this is a worst case scenario for you.
If you find someone, and this happens to you, on a battlefield, which unfortunately was quite common at the time of the Torah being written. We had, Shaul HaMelech, King David, who were both quite intensive in their war efforts, which is obviously, as you know, why they didn't build the Beit HaMikdash, because Hashem said that He did not want someone who was drawn with blood on their hands, someone who is so, such a powerful fighter, to build the holiest vessel known in human history, the Beit HaMikdash, to build and to construct things like the Aron Kodesh, or things like the Shulchan, so forth and so on, which is why, obviously, in the end, only the foundation stones were laid. But going back to the point of if you are married and if you're going to find a bride in this manner, it is important to keep in mind that there's certain criteria you have to fill out, which obviously has to be a righteous woman among the nations, has to be someone who is actually worth spending your life in marriage with. But if the marriage does not work out, if it does not pursue, there is a way, and there is the halakha that says you shall not send her off, you shall not put her as a slave against you, you shall not sell her as a bride.
money, yeah. Because if you find a beautiful woman even among the captives in a camp, there could be potential threat of rape attempted by other people. So in order to avoid every bit of sin from the midst of the children of Israel, it is better to marry and take her as wife and have children than to commit a sin so grievous, written in the Torah, cover to cover, and cause mental illness, trauma for the woman, and all sorts, because she's already in a trauma because of the war, losing her parents. And this is where we derive, I think, Shiva. When you lose your parents, you sit in Shiva, or your wife, 30 days of Shiva, in days of mourning. So in order to avoid every bit of sin from the midst of the children of Israel, this is the best possible method.
She could also be mourning her father and mother because she's actually leaving her people, joining a new people.
Yes, yes, good
so
point.
It's not just they're not necessarily going to be dead in the war.
Yes, exactly.
But she's actually
spiritually they might be.
Spiritually, yeah. But so spiritually, she's losing her parents.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's the main point.
Yeah, she has to part from
the Torah.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I don't know what it means by shaving off her hair and nails. Not to grow her nails. Does anyone?
Well, it's like all the beauty has been taken away. The initial beauty that he's seen.
Yeah.
And it's like it's giving him time to
wow, that's very good.
Sober up.
So good.
Yeah. It's like sobering up
sobering
up from his lust and all that. Yeah. So it's like he sees her without hair, without nails. It's like, okay, and then he has to decide, do I really want this woman as well?
Or is it only for the beauty? So
this is actually not for the sake of beauty then.
Exactly. The Rashi
and why would
And then the Rashi says that the garments of her captivity, so the ones that she wears while in captivity, during war, it is customary for a Gentile woman, not a Jewish woman, a Gentile woman, to wear their finest clothes of the time in order to entice the captors. What does this mean? This means that during captivity, a woman is very likely to be held hostage and to be held and to also be raped.
Yeah,
raped. One of the things that the Torah says is that they would use, their beauty as a way to almost entice the men, or a way to bribe the men out of their captivity. So they would wear their finest garments. They would then they would wear, the best clothes they have, and in a plea to almost free them from the clutches of the people who were holding them under war.
Right. So what's the next verse?
So
we covered the part of garment, parents, selling can't be sold for money.
if here we are, verse 15.
Yeah.
If there shall be to a man 2 wives, the one beholden and the one hated, they bore to him sons, the beloved one, the hated one, and it was that the son, who was the firstborn, was who was born to the hated one, then it shall be that on the day that the bequeath to his son, that which will be his, he is not able to grant the right of the firstborn to the son of the beloved one. Which goes, this is a very common correlation.
Yeah. With
which obviously with
Leah.
Esau. With Leah. And the verse carries on in the place of the son of the hated one, who is the firstborn, rather than the firstborn, the son of the hated one, he must recognize to give the birthright to him. And what is this?
Why did not Esau given the birthright?
So this is a very common, very common question. But Esau sold his birthright. He basically he had a part. It was a pot of lentil stew, and obviously he sold it to Jacob. And the idea of the selling, there's an idea that this pot of lentil stew was almost, it was planned there by Hashem. Obviously, everything was planned by Hashem. There's obviously a person up there doing things that we don't know, but in the end of the day, it comes into Tova. This will also be for good. So this pot of lentil stew was no coincidence. It was planned there to be, to continue the Jewish bloodline, because of course, as we know, when Esau and Yaakov and Jacob were in the mother's womb, they were fighting. So each time she would walk past a place of idol worship, or
Esau would kick
Jacob, and each time they would walk past a place of the Beit Midrash or the synagogue, or somewhere where the Torah is studied. Then the reverse would happen. Jacob would kick Esau, and and the Torah shows obviously they were twins, but there were two separate sides. There were two separate sides of the coin. So Hashem obviously decided that the Jewish bloodline cannot continue in this way. Cannot continue to go down the route of Esau, because the Jews would eventually turn to hatred. They would turn to lust. They would turn to greed, which is what Hashem was trying to prevent. Because if you remember back in Parshat Noah, originally the world was full of people who would rob and steal and greed and kill, and Hashem wiped them all out and only left Noah remaining to prevent this from happening again. So deceit happening once more, but not with Gentiles, but with Am Yisrael, with his chosen nation. He couldn't bear that thought. There's a very famous saying from Torah of 2 weeks ago. It says that Hashem sees Israel on his hands, and on his palms he sees the rest of the world. This means that he sees Am Yisrael, he sees the nation of Israel first and foremost, and by that he then judges the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So this can go back to our point by saying that we have to make sure that we choose someone who is righteous, and will not tarnish the bloodline of Am Yisrael. So if a Jewish captor has hope for the change of heart, and he sets free, even if he chooses to go back to idol worship, so this is obviously referring to the bride. If the bride goes back to idol worship, had he been concerned only that he could marry her, and he could then, convince her, and it was not valid, it did not work out. If the marriage could not take place, however, she had not converted in her own free will, or she remains Jewless and is like the other Jew cannot renounce her Judaism. You know, so this is by the Ramban, and a very interesting comment here. And the comment is, it says that, you know, when a Gentile marries a Jew under the Chuvah canopy, they're almost in a way converted to what the husband follows. Now, of course, today we have to marry a Gentile. A Jew must the Gentile must convert, and they must go through a vigorous process under the Beit to fulfill this halachically. But again, things were, you know, slightly simpler back then, if not even more complicated back then. So the halakha goes by the Stooge, and it says that they were almost going to convert. And while they were Jewless, they lost their spark. If the wedding did not take place, it was almost like a lingering mitzvah that did not get fulfilled. And it does not only go for conversion, it goes for many mitzvot. Even things like as simple as saying amen to a bracha. You know, if you don't say amen immediately, it's considered an orphaned amen. It's considered something that has no parent, because the parent is the bracha itself, and the child is the amen. So if you do not link them together immediately, the amen goes astray and orphans away and has their parents to be with.
Do you have any interesting points, Grant?
Yeah, I mean, on that concept, it's interesting. On Masilat Yasharim, it talks about performing the mitzvot with zeal and alacrity, like very quickly. So you don't wait, and you don't let time come in between the opportunity to a mitzvah and a mitzvah. Right. And then he makes a comparison between the word mitzvah and matzah.
Yeah.
And so the matzah is like the mitzvah.
Yes, exactly.
And so the mitzvah must not be leavened with time.
That's time.
Yes.
So it's time for shachrit. You're not lying in bed like, oh, I don't get out of bed.
Because your inclination
because
comes.
It's like you start the time aspect comes into your heart and your mind and starts corrupting you.
Your thoughts,
because you're no longer serving Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind, because it's that time is coming and leavening that mitzvah.
Because it says that a mitzvah lechna mitzvah, and a sin goes to a sin. So a mitzvah will lead to another mitzvah, and a sin will lead to another sin. And you know, there's this very common. I believe it was the Rebbe said, when he was still alive, of blessed memory, he said that, you know, a person who has a mitzvah must run to the mitzvah, especially if the mitzvah, because a mitzvah can run away from you. So if you don't run to mitzvah, the mitzvah can run away from you. So a very common example that he was given was that if a parent tells to their child to go take out the rubbish, and he does not do that, they might do that themselves. So if he does not go with haste to finish this mitzvah, then the mitzvah can go away from him, and he loses the merit of that mitzvah. Yeah. And that's one less thing, obviously, to the Mashiach, because the Mashiach is based on the mitzvah, which is why the Am Yisrael, we run to every mitzvah possible to find the one that will bring the Mashiach.
Yeah, it's a very important concept to run to the mitzvah.
Also, when you do one mitzvah, you're not just doing one mitzvah, you're fulfilling a whole lot of other mitzvahs as well down the line. But I read this, and I heard this in a Chabad video thing. When you do a mitzvah, you're not actually fulfilling one of them. You're covering a whole lot of other mitzvahs, both known and unknown. For example, you know, wearing tefillin. How does that cover not one mitzvah but a lot of other mitzvahs?
So
do you have any ideas?
So I was thinking that there's this, you know, that when Hashem brings down in the Shema from Shema, when Hashem brings down like a soul from heaven, each soul has a body and each body has a soul. And Hashem gives the soul a mitzvah. The soul has one, you know, big thing it has to like finish in their lifetime, and if it does not finish it, then the next soul, the next body the soul is in, can fulfill the same mitzvah for you in a way. Right. Now, but the body does not know this mitzvah, only the soul does. And of course, as we know, when the child is in the womb of its mother, it learns the entire Torah, and including this mitzvah. But when it wakes up, when it is awakened, obviously,
It forgets everything.
yeah, the angel comes and kisses it on its lip and forgets the Torah, and we have to spend our days relearning the Torah to make up for this lost time. So what the baby learns in 9 months, we have to spend our entire days learning. And this is very interesting because what we find out is that many people, they have one distinct mitzvah and they run to each one, but we do not know which one is that. So we go to every single mitzvah, but sometimes even the most mundane ones are the big ones in Hashem's hands. So, for example, if we have an opportunity to study 10 hours of Torah a day, we do not know if that is more important to Hashem than studying 5 minutes of Torah a day. If someone can spend 12 hours working in a factory, but only has 10 minutes before bed to study Torah, we do not know if that is more important to Hashem than the 10 hours that a tzaddik would spend studying Torah in the Beit Midrash each day.
Next verse.
We veered off topic a bit.
That's how it goes.
We were talking about something, we went off track.
Okay.
Okay, come on, Grant, your turn.
Well, here, Barbanel asks an interesting question. Why should a son inherit a double portion of his father's goods just because he is firstborn?
So, who wants to expand? Log me to expand.
Where's that? I don't know.
So it talks about here.
Which page?
If his sons, so when he wills his property to his sons, he may not treat the firstborn, the son of the loved one, in disregard of the son of the unloved who is older. Instead, he must accept the firstborn, the son of the unloved one, and allot him the double portion of all that he possesses, since he is the first fruit of his vigor, that birthright is due. So yeah, it's interesting that this idea of the firstborn receiving double, receiving double. I mean, in spiritual.
Firstborn. Let me think.
Yeah, it's there is a discussion on it in regards to why it was instrumental for Esav and Yaakov, because this is interesting because the two Mashiachim who were meant to come and rectify Adam Harishon's mistake, two Mashiachs, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben Yosef was meant to deal with the physicality, clean up the tumah in the physicality, and Mashiach ben David is meant to come and bring kedusha. Okay, now Esav was meant to the role of Mashiach ben Yosef was meant to pass through Esav, but Esav, that's why Esav had the biggest Yetzer Hara, because he was out in the field. He was an Ish Sadeh, and an Ish Sadeh means that you're out in physicality, and he had the greatest challenge. He had the greatest challenge. Okay.
No one else says he was a man of the field.
He's a man of
But
the
also,
field.
he also had the great opportunity. So many people who are men of the field do not have the opportunity to study Torah as much as Esav. Esav was the brother.
I mean, Yaakov.
Esav's brother was Yaakov, and Yaakov was a very righteous, a tzaddik, as we all know. So he had an opportunity each day to wake up and study Torah, but instead he chooses the path of the unrighteous, of the path of the field, the path of the labor, of the physical labor.
Because you're meant to tick on that area of the world, though.
Correct.
The physical world. Okay, so he's meant to do a tick on there, and he didn't and he fell to his Yetzer Hara. So that's why the blessing had to go to Yaakov instead. Yaakov had to receive the role of Mashiach ben Yosef instead of his brother. So that's why Yaakov got a double portion. So there's the spiritual blessing that Yaakov was going to get because he was a man of the tents. He was an Ishtam, sitting in the tent learning Torah. He was going to get the spiritual blessing, but Esav was going to get the blessing of the physicality. And that's why when you look at Esav's blessing, it's all about the physical world. When he goes to when he blesses Yaakov gets the blessing of physicality and the spirituality. And so this is the idea of Am Yisrael. Am Israel has the blessing of the spiritual and the physical. So they have the Torah that's given to them on Har Sinai, but they also have the physical, the land of Israel, the fruits of the land and the wine, all of that. They both harmonize together. So this is important. So that's in terms of we got a double. That's why what the double portion is in terms of like the nations and the nation of Israel. But in terms of like, I'm not sure exactly how to pinpoint what it is in terms of individuals and the firstborn sons and families.
Yeah. Also it says, before Shabbat, we get a double portion of the manna. You are meant to collect the double portion of the manna. I'm just quite beating around the bush, but it's a very.
So I think we'll finish on this point that I read about 2 months ago, and it says that Yaakov was blessed to have the Shekhinah or the presence of Hashem with him as he studied Torah, and Esav had the opposite. He had because every Jew has an neshama, and in the neshama he has an angel. But Esav's angel was actually the Satan, the angel that works for Hashem, responsible for sins and bad deeds. So as we say that, but Jews are not one or the other. We are not either perfect and pure or horrible and impure. We are united together. And we are both of those things. So we have each Jew today has an opportunity to do both of those things. Either be pure and try to be pure and study Torah, or to be impure and holy like Esav. And that's how inaugural Torah class, Stooge Beit Torah. Shavua Tov, everyone.
Okay, good.
Bye.